Around 1200 BC, 8 civilizations that had thrived for centuries collapsed within a single generation, and we still don't fully know why. It is literally one of the wildest mysteries in human history.
Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're investigating history's greatest unsolved mystery, the Late Bronze Age collapse. Think of it as a massive historical whodunit. In just a matter of decades, the most advanced, powerful empires on Earth were completely erased. We're going to follow a trail of ash, ruined cities, and forgotten languages to find out what happened. Let's dive in.
Part 1. The Golden Age and the Interconnected Ancient World. Before we can examine the crime scene, we've got to look at the victim, right? Because to understand the sheer magnitude of this collapse, you have to realize just how incredibly advanced this era was. We're talking about a highly prosperous, globalized world spanning all the way from Italy to Afghanistan.
Look at the ancient globalization at play here. You've got these heavy hitters, the Egyptians, the Hittites, the Mycenaeans, the Babylonians. These empires definitely weren't isolated. They were deeply interwoven through incredibly complex diplomacy and massive maritime trade networks. They completely relied on each other for things like grain, pottery, and gold. But, there was one specific commodity that drove this ancient economy more than anything else.
That commodity was bronze. And the absolute crux of their entire economy came down to a very strict ratio, 10-1. See, to forge bronze, which was the absolute highest tech material of its day, you need 10 parts copper to 1 part tin. And here is the catch. You almost never find those two metals in the same place. So this forced massive long-distance imports. We're talking copper coming from places like Cyprus and tin being hauled all the way from Afghanistan.
To really grasp just how dependent they were on international commerce, take a look at the cargo from the Uluburun shipwreck. It sank off the coast of modern-day Turkey around 1320 BC. This single ship was carrying bulk shipments of copper and tin ingots, carved ivory trinkets, gold jewelry, Lebanese cedarwood. It was an ancient global supply chain in full swing. It's brilliant. But what happens when that chain completely breaks?
Which brings us to Part 2, the dominoes fall. A city-by-city destruction. Literally, the lights just go out on the ancient world. And you have to ask yourself, what could possibly cause these seemingly invincible, heavily armed empires to just vanish into ash almost overnight?
Let's trace the timeline of our crime scene, and it is absolutely apocalyptic. Around 1250 BC, a widespread decline begins. By 1190 BC, incredibly wealthy coastal cities like Ugarit are utterly destroyed. Fast forward a bit to 1177 BC, and Pharaoh Ramesses III barely manages to repel a massive invasion of Egypt. And honestly, it's a Pyrrhic victory. By 1100 BC, the Greek Dark Ages have officially begun. This devastation was so complete that entire writing systems like Linear B were completely erased from human memory, just wiped out.
We actually have a terrifying first-hand account of this apocalypse. Archaeologists excavating the ruined city of Ugarit found a clay tablet. It was still baked in the kiln from the fires that burned the city to the ground. It contains this desperate final letter from King Amurabi. He wrote, "The enemy's ships came here. My cities were burned, and they did evil things in my country. Our food in the threshing floors is sacked, and the vineyards are also destroyed. Our city is sacked. May you know it."
Part 3. The Prime Suspects. Interrogating the evidence. That letter is literally a chilling message from a ghost. So let's put our detective hats on. We've got our victims, we have our timeline. Who or what were the culprits behind this massive scale of destruction? Let's interrogate our prime suspects.
Suspect number 1. The Sea Peoples. They were this extremely mysterious seafaring confederation of raiders and refugees, literally the boogeymen of the Bronze Age. We have Egyptian reliefs depicting them arriving on ships, but also on land with ox-drawn carts. So this tells us they were a migrating population. And they wielded this revolutionary weapon, the Naue-2 sword. It was vastly superior to traditional bronze weapons, and they basically tore through the Mediterranean like a buzzsaw.
But here is the plot twist. The Sea Peoples couldn't have acted alone. Why? Because inland empires, like the Assyrians and the Kassites, also collapsed, and the Sea Peoples never reached them. This introduces suspect number 2, a catastrophic megadrought. When we look at core samples taken from the Sea of Galilee, they show that the period from 1250 to 1100 BC was the driest of the entire Bronze Age, a brutal century-long drought. decimated crops, widespread famine.
Then, suspect number 3 comes from beneath the ground. Geologists have found evidence of what's called an earthquake storm. This wasn't just a single isolated tremor. No, it was a violent, rapid-fire series of major seismic events. Between 1225 and 1175 BC, these ancient superpowers were literally shaken to their foundations. It bled their resources completely dry as civilizations had to just endlessly rebuild.
Finally, suspect number 4, internal revolt. You see, these societies operated on highly centralized palace economies. Basically, the elites controlled and redistributed all the wealth. But let's add it all up. You've got massive droughts, you've got earthquake damage, you've got starving peasants. Add in pirates cutting off the trade routes, which means elites can't even pay their mercenaries. The result? The rigid, top-heavy system just imploded from within. The lower classes likely rose up and literally burned the palaces to the ground.
Part 4. The verdict. The perfect storm theory. So we've got marauding invaders, a century of drought, 50 years of earthquakes, and violent peasant uprisings. Which suspect actually struck the fatal blow?
Well, the verdict, according to historian Eric Klein, is all of them. This is known as the perfect storm theory. None of these suspects acted alone. Instead, they hit in rapid succession. Think about it. The drought forced people to migrate, which likely created the Sea Peoples in the first place. Then earthquakes completely shattered the infrastructure. Next, those invaders hit the already weakened cities, and finally, the starving populations rebelled. It was a fatal, compounding catastrophe.
You really have to consider the difference between isolated disasters and a perfect storm. Human civilizations are tough, right? They're resilient. They can survive a single earthquake or weather a few years of famine by recovering and rebuilding. But you cannot survive a simultaneous systems collapse. When every single link in the chain breaks at exactly the same time, the catastrophe multiplies, and that is how the entire Bronze Age network shattered.
Part 5. Echoes in the Modern World, and why this matters today. You might be wondering, why does this ancient history matter to us right now? Well, because looking at the ruins of Mycenae or Hattusa isn't just looking at the past. It is a chilling mirror reflecting our modern world.
The absolutely crucial takeaway from this explainer is simple. Complex, interconnected systems are fragile. The ancients relied on incredibly fragile copper and tin supply chains, while our modern globalized economy relies on just-in-time shipping, global semiconductor chips, and really complex diplomacy. When one node goes down, whether that's from climate change, a pandemic, or war, the cascading disruptions are terrifying. The Bronze Age collapse is a major reminder for us. No civilization is immune to a systems failure.
So, the mighty Bronze Age fell, making way for the Iron Age, the alphabet, and the world as we know it today. But one glaring question remains, hovering over the ashes of 1177 BC. Who exactly were the Sea Peoples? Where was their homeland before they took to the ships? Well, that is a completely different unsolved mystery just waiting to be unraveled. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the past.